My name's Sonia and this is my channel, See It Then, See It Now. For today's video I've been set another editor challenge, and this time it's to create a Halloween project using only items from my stash, or as the supervisor likes to call it, the pile of junk that needs to go to the charity shop. Let's take a look and see how I went on. The cup also got a coat of white chalk paint to start and then a coat of black acrylic paint. Once the paint was dry, I covered the cup with a layer of napkin, just to give the surface some texture, so I wasn't worried about wrinkles. With this one, this is one of the few occasions when wrinkles are good. Once the napkin was dry, I painted it black again, and then once that was dry, I highlighted the uneven surface with copper gilding wax. Once that was dry, I sealed it with a coat of varnish. It was, after all, going to be on a fire. I glued a wire into the bottom of the cup using E6000 and hot glue and left that to dry overnight. You may be picking up that this project was very bitter and that I felt like I was just constantly waiting for something to dry. It was great fun, and I did love how it turned out, but I did at times think, what can I do now? I'm waiting on everything drying. Next, I wrapped these green lights all around the wire from the top all the way down and into the cup. I scrunched up some clear plastic bag and put it in the bottom just to take up some of the space, and then added the lights on top. I then placed some clear glass pebbles over the top of the lights and just got it about 3/4 of the way up the cup with the pebbles. I made sure that the top layer of pebbles were nice and straight, and I tried to make sure there was as few gaps in between the pebbles as possible. Once I was happy with the placement, I poured a thin layer of glossy Mod Podge over the top of the top layer of pebbles. Obviously some of this fell down in between the pebbles, which was why I tried to fill as many gaps as possible, and I just very gently poured a thin layer over the top. And then once again I had to wait for it to dry. There is more that I need to do with this cup, but I'll come back to that later on in the video. Not exactly your everyday project, this one. So what did you do today, Sonia? Oh, you know, I just conjured up a ghost using a plastic tube, some wire and a bit of cheesecloth. My life is kind of amazing. I need the ghost to look like it's coming up out of the cup, so I decided to use a log at the bottom that will come to about the same height as the cup. That way I can attach this plastic tube to the top of the log, and then that can be the spot for the ghost's body. So the first thing I needed to do was cut the tube to the correct size. I created the arms using wire, which I wrapped around the tube and secured with masking tape. I am, by the way, completely making this up as I go. For the head, I scrunched a piece of cling film into a ball and taped that to the top of the tube, while pulling a very strange face. Tape it on the right end. Put his head down there and his arms down there. Sonia sometimes. I did actually make 3 ghosts. I wasn't sure if I was going to use more than one in the finished design or whether the size I was making was right, so I did actually make 3 of different sizes, and I did only end up using the one. The one that you've just seen me making is the one that I use in the design. I cut out the footage of me making the other 2. Okay, so there's my... How much imagination does this take at the moment? Quite a bit, I think. Oh dear. Oh, Sonia needs help. I don't know why I think this is so funny. Oh, the things I do. Okay. This is gonna work. Let's have faith. Let's trust the process. Okay, so let's just get rid of some of this stuff that's lying around. This is the trouble with a project like this. I end up doing, okay, I'm waiting on that drying, so I'll just paint that, and then I'm waiting on that drying, so I'll just cut that up, and I end up with tools and stuff everywhere, and the entire room completely trashed. Behind me is such a mess. There's paint everywhere, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. Anyway, okay, so I've got my little templates. Now I need to get the cloth. I cut some pieces of cloth to size and made sure that the ends were torn and tatty. I then dipped each piece into a mixture of half PVA and half water, and then I draped each piece over the ghost body, making sure I covered everywhere. Okay, we just have to let them dry. I'm going to clean up. I'm going to make some space, and then we'll continue with the next bit. This is good fun. To make the sign, I started by printing some words off on Canva at the correct size, and I transferred them onto the piece of wood using some carbon paper. I then measured at 2 cm intervals and drew lines across the wood. Using a wood burning tool, I got this for Christmas last year. I absolutely love it. I haven't actually put any of the projects that I've done with this on my channel yet, but I do absolutely love this tool. It's so much fun to use. I burned the words into the wood. I have the tool. It was an opportunity to play with the tool, so that's what I chose to do, but I could have painted it on. I could have used marker pens. Using scissors, I cut into the edges to make it all uneven, and I cut into where I'd put the pencil lines just to make the sign look a little bit more like it was planks rather than one solid piece of wood. I also chipped some bits off and just made it look a bit worn and jagged at the edges. I then burnt the wood around the edges and tried to put a kind of a grain effect along each plank. I cut a piece of dowel for the pole, which I think I end up painting black, and at some point I do glue that on, but not in this bit of the video. I started by painting the teapot with white chalk paint and then with various oranges and browns, and at this point the teapot looked dreadful. Everything in my body is telling me not to bother doing this because it's going to end in disaster, but I'm not listening. I'm just going to make a mess anyway. So I'm going to start by putting gloves on because I don't want this all inside my fingernails for starters. And I've got loads of this, so worst case scenario I've got a horrible clean up to do. But if we don't try these things, then you know, you don't know, it might be like, it might turn out amazing. Very much doubt it, but it might do. So I really don't know what I'm doing. This is just complete playtime now, but what I thought I might try and do is make the pumpkin grooves, layers, instead of trying to paint them on, because that's just not working because I'm not good enough. Or maybe I'm trying to do something that's not possible, but I'm guessing I'm not good enough. And when I say I'm not good enough, I don't mean that in a negative way. My painting has come a long way over the last 5-ish years, and I'm really proud of how far I've got. And who knows, maybe one day I'll even be a pro pumpkin painter, though I'm not sure the world's crying out for that particular skill. What a doubting Thomas I was. This worked reasonably well and was nowhere near as messy as I thought it was going to be. Basically, I spread the filler over the surface, going in an up and down movement rather than around the teapot. I then added some grooves, and I used a brush just to go over the surface very lightly, just to put some texture in. Once the filler was dry, I gave it a light sand. Oh yes, and I did the spout last. It was just a bit easier not trying to do the spout while the sides were wet, so I'd left that bit till last. So as you can see, I'm just doing exactly the same with the spout, up and down, putting grooves in, and then once that was dry, of course, that then needed sanding as well. Now to make a stalk, and I used desk clay, and I just played with it until I had a kind of a stalk for the top of the teapot, kind of, if you use your imagination a little bit. I moulded the clay around the finial, and yes, I did Google what is the little bubble on the top of a teapot called. Apparently it's called a finial. You learn something new every day. So I moulded it around the finial, and then once I had it moulded round and kind of looking stuck like, I popped some grooves into the clay using this metal clay tool that came with a set of tools I got at some point. I don't know what its actual name is. Maybe I should have googled that as well. I put some grooves in it, and then I smoothed over the whole surface with a small wet paintbrush. Everything was dry now, so it was time to turn this pumpkin orange, and I used various colours and painted on the first coat. My intention was to go dark on the first coat and then lighter on the second coat, but still have some of the darker colour showing through, just to give it a bit of extra texture. I will put a list of the colours that I used in the description box, and I am just using acrylic paint. So I had to check what colour a stalk was. I really couldn't remember. I had in my head that it was green or brown or maybe beige, or I wasn't sure. So here's another Google fact. The stem of a pumpkin transitions from green to brown as the pumpkin matures. If your pumpkin has a green stem, it was picked too early. Anyway, I played around with some green and brown paint and ended up with a green stalk, so I guess my pumpkin was picked too early. Now for the second coat on the pumpkin, and you can see here that I've already tried to paint one side of it, but I just wasn't happy with the colour. So I let ChatGPT, I can only say that slowly or I get the letters in the wrong order. I let ChatGPT know what colour paints I had and asked what to mix for a pumpkin colour. So here I am mixing it up as per the instructions. This was a much better match. I didn't cover everywhere, but I did leave some of the darker colours showing through. Once it was dry, it got a coat of matte varnish. The legs of this stand are not needed for this project, so I started by removing them. So the iPad stand is going to be the tray that I use to put everything on, and I positioned the cup where that was going to go and then drew around it. This gave me a nice circle line to follow, and I glued stones all the way around in a circle. This is going to be the fire under the cauldron cup, so I added logs and tiny stones just to fill the centre of the circle. At this point I didn't really know exactly what I wanted this to look like or how I was going to put it all together. I did know what I wanted to do across this front edge though, so I'm gluing some stones on here because I know that that's how I want this front bit to be. What I did with the rest of the display is I built it up as I went, so once I worked out exactly how I was going to do the next bit, I added stones to that section and did it that way. But like I say, I knew what I wanted across this front. I knew exactly what I was going to do with this bit that I'm gluing now, so I basically just glued the stones down using PVA, just popped plenty of PVA down and then just sprinkled the stones on, and they glued in perfectly fine. Using black, orange and red paint, I created my burnt glowing embers of the fire. Okay, just go with me guys. Most of it's covered up anyway, but use your imagination a little bit for me. Yeah, it was the fire centre. Like I say, most of it's going to be covered up with the cup and it's not going to be that noticeable anyway, but I just had a play about and made it look kind of a bit like a fire. Well, a bit more like a fire than just a load of stones and bits of wood stuck to a board. As you can see here, I have the log for the ghost now stuck in place behind where the cup will sit, just there on the left hand side. And on the right hand side I've got a taller log which I've glued in place, which is going to support the teapot. My plan now is to create a pretty flower arrangement to go all the way around the bottom of where the teapot's going to sit. I glued a piece of floral foam in place and then I started playing around with the flowers, creating a design. As I got to this point, I decided it would probably be best just to get some more of the stones down on the base before the arrangement got too full, and putting the stones down would have been more difficult. I didn't want to end up having to try and lift flowers up and shove the stones underneath. My original plan was just to pop felt pads on the bottom of this, just to protect any surface from getting scratched, but I forgot about the battery pack for the lights and it was too late now for me to hide it somewhere within the display, so I decided to raise it up so that the battery pack could be just slotted underneath the whole thing. I had these knobs left over from when I did the drawers makeover in the guest bedroom, and putting them on the bottom of here proved a little bit difficult. It would have been so much easier to do it right at the beginning, but hindsight is a wonderful thing. So I ended up just blobbing some E6000 on the top of each one, sticking the display on top, and then adjusting where the feet were underneath once I had it on. I ended up with glue all over my hands. It was a really messy job, but it worked. And one of the good things of doing it this way around is I had the weight already on top to hold the feet in place, so that was a bonus. While the legs were drying, I decided to add the top layer of Mod Podge to the cup. I mixed a bit of Mod Podge with some green mica powder and green glitter and poured in the layer into the cup. I then added another thin layer of Mod Podge and sprinkled in some glitter and used the handle of a brush just to swirl the glitter through the Mod Podge. I then added some small beads to act as bubbles and some small skull beads that I'd painted white. Now for the bit that I really hadn't been looking forward to, and that was getting this teapot in place. And I'm not going to lie, this was a nightmare. I expected it to be a nightmare, it was a nightmare. The joy of editing though, I can make it look reasonably straightforward, but it really wasn't. It actually took me 28 minutes to get this teapot to stick to this stand. I really struggled with this one, and in the end I just ended up squirting hot glue everywhere, E6000 everywhere, and just kept adding more glue until eventually I did have it stuck in place. Now to get the potion pouring from the pumpkin teapot, I used hot glue to build it up in layers around the wire and covering the lights. The glue wanted to drop off at the back of the wire, so I used some cellophane just to stop it from dripping, and as soon as the glue was solid enough, I removed the cellophane, left it a moment to dry before going in with the next layer. I gave my ghost a face using a marker pen. And then I glued him in place. Painting the paw with some gloss Mod Podge made it nice and shiny, and I sprinkled on some green glitter. Pretty orange flowers helped cover the log, and all that was left to do was a few finishing touches. So let's have a reminder and see it then. And let's see it now. I really enjoyed making this one. It was such good fun, and I absolutely love how it turned out. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I also need to find a home for this. I really don't know what to do with it now I've made it. So any suggestions, let me know please in the comments. Please give me a thumbs up, and if you're not yet subscribed, then do hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on other content similar to this, upcycles, challenges, room makeovers, all that sort of thing. The guest bedroom is coming along very nicely. I've got more updates coming on that. I am posting updates on Facebook and Instagram, so if you're not following me on there, then follow me on there. You'll get snippets of what's going on before the videos come out. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you very soon in the next one. Bye for now.